Alright, hello professor. This is my upload for assignment number 2. I'm going to start off with section 4.4 and I'm going to go to section 6.24 of the exercises. Alright, I'm going to share my whole screen so everything is viewable and easy to see, and I'm going to open and run these as we go. Alright, thank you. Oh, awesome. Most of them are already opened in Notepad++, so it'll be easier to go about these. Alright, so for our first question, I did the usual header for an HTML document, but we're going to be doing CSS code. So we style it with the body. We're going to use a background image. I chose a random image that I thought looked nice, that I could put into this from the URL. I made sure it would be centered, it would repeat, and it would be fixed across. And then I put a header for a title on the web page. And this is what it looks like. Alright, so for question 4.5, we have, let's get this open as we go. So we have styled paragraph and we have a styled header for first header and then a secondary header. This is very similar to how we can do this on multiple other platforms. So we're going to have header 1 and header 2 in the style. We're going to have the padding 0.5. We're going to have the header border be dashed, and we're going to have a margin of 0.5 ems. And for header 1, I put hello world, just as a basic, description, and then header 2 as hello galaxy, just to show the difference between the two. Right, and you can see the difference from header 1 and header 2. Alright, moving on, we will have exercise 4.7. This one was a little bit more complicated, so easy enough to see it like this. This is a little bit better. Alright, so we have the CSS style. We have the background color of green for the body. We have the text alignment going to the left side. We have the color for any text that would be on the background being red. I don't have text on the background right now. And we have the box size, and it's a bordered box, so it's all bordered up. For our header, which is going to be our header right up here. Let me just try to keep both of these on the same way. I gotta stop clicking. Alright, so this is our header. We're going to have a 5 pixel padding. Our margin is going to be to the left because I wanted to keep it all organized to the side. Our font size is going to be 30. I wanted to make sure it was a bit bigger. Background color is going to be white, so it's visible on a green background. And the text is going to be blue. For the column, we're going to have it be a left float with a width of 100 and a height of 100% and a height of 200 pixels with a padding of 10 pixels. For the paragraph, which is going to be used for what we have down here, where you have it on the left side, float left, we have a width of 50%, a height of 150 pixels, a margin right of 5 pixels for the margin. We have a color that's going to be white. If we had any type of text written into it. So paragraph 1's text is white, paragraph 2's text is white because we're both using it for it. The display is going to be flexible, flex. The content that's going to be written inside of it is going to be centered. The alignment of the items that would be associated with this would also be centered. Our font size is going to be 20, so it would be a little bit easier to read to keep size with the page and margins. The borders that we're going to create are going to be 5 pixels, and it's going to be solid green, and the background color is going to be red. The way I displayed it is I created a class of columns. So we're using the columns to create each of the items that are going to be present. I'm going to do a paragraph of style color red for the first one, with a border color of yellow, since we created the border color, the border and the background. And the text that's going to go into this is going to be paragraph 1. This is the first paragraph as an example. For the second one, we did the exact same thing, so we created another paragraph with the background color of blue, and the border color that is pink. It's kind of hard to see on this example, but it's pink. I can zoom in on this to make it a little bit more viewable. Yeah. And the same thing, just written text. This is the second paragraph as an example. Alright, moving on. Section 4.8. Pretty sure we're doing the example that was presented by the question. It said to give an example, but I use the exact same stuff. I can add more stuff to it. Yeah, all I'll do is just make another line for sites that I visit often. What we're doing is we're creating where we're going to have links, and when we hover over the links to click the links, it's going to change the color for the style. I've made that color orange just so it would be more visible. Yeah, so here's my header for it. So going through it again, we're going to go through it slowly. We're going to do the stylings of a header, which is going to be red with a bolden font, so it's more easy to read. And the font size is going to be 40 pixels, so it's nice and big to read. For the main content that we're going to do, it's going the color of the written words is going to be blue. Not going to put any text decorations. And the font size is going to be 20 pixels, so it's going to be large. And when we hover over this object, it's going to have a background color of orange. So as we go about it, it just turns orange. For the body of it, I put a header just to name it, just to describe what's going on. Click and name to visit sites. We're going to put paragraph and reference Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, Google. And then as we click on each of these things, it takes us to each of the sites. I'm not logged into anything right now, but I'm pretty sure some of the stuff is saved. Yeah. And that's it for 4.8. For 5.4, we're using the styles of the WebKit. So let's open that one up. 5.4. Let me change this to a different color. Let's go with green. Just for visibility. Make it look pretty. Alright, refresh. So for section 5.4, we have the, we're using the WebKit, so we're going to have it as the text stroke itself as navy in color. We're going to have the text fill color as light blue, and we're going to have the font size at 300%, the initial written text. So we're going to have a class of for the text stroke itself of new WebKit feature, and then we're going to implement test for the new WebKit feature to show the difference of how it's used versus how it's displayed with the WebKit. All right, moving on to 5.5. Section 5.5. All right. Section 5.5, we're rounding the corners. So we're going to create each of these objects. We're going to create a div that is centered with a width of 100 and a height of 100. We're going to have the line height that borders the object of 90 pixels. We're going to have a margin of 5 between them, and we're going to have an overflow that's hidden overflow, and we're going to start off our objects to the left. So for each object that we make, for the first one, we're going to have a border of 10 pixels. We're going to have a border that is solid black, a border width that is 3 pixels, and a background color that is red. So that's going to be the shape of the first one. For the second one, we're going to have a border radius of 50 pixels, a border that is solid black as well, a border width of 3 pixels surrounding it, and then a background color that is white. For the third div, we're going to have a radius of 100 pixels, a border that is solid black, a width of 3 pixels, and a background that is blue. For what is written inside of each div, we're going to ID it as div 1, this is 10 pixels, div 2, this is 50 pixels, and div 3, this is 100 pixels. Alright, so moving on to 5.7. Alright, so for section 5.7, we're going to do a CSS with a div of, with a width of 500 pixels and a height of 500 pixels. So we're creating perfect square. We're going to use a background WebKit with linear gradient starting from the right top to the left bottom of a color of 16% violet, a color of 37% indigo, color of 48% blue, a color of 64% green, color of 83% yellow, up to the color of 92% orange, and a color of 93% red. So as we're going from the right top to left bottom, we're following the percentages of how much is going to be changing throughout it. All right, and then we're creating the space for it by creating this div right here, so the object displays on the web page. All right, moving on to 5.9. We're creating a moving box, so this moving box is going to be the full web page, and I made sure I got it right up until the exact same point on both sides. So let's just make this a little smaller so we can see what's going on. Alright, we're going to create our box in our styles with a width of 175 pixels and height of 175 pixels with background color of red. The position will be moving, so it will be relative, and we will be doing an animation, so it will move. My move is going to be the name of it, for 3 seconds infinitely. We're going to use the WebKit keyframes to move from left at 0 pixels to left at 1000 pixels. And then we're going to create our motion for how our box moves. So it's going to be at 0%, starting at the left. It's going to, at its midway point, reach 1,680 pixels, which would be just about the full length of the page. About the full length of the page would be 1,700 pixels. So I made sure that there was a little bit of space on each side, and then it would come back to its starting point at 0 pixels. And then we create the div for, and we ID the box to create the display of the box on the web page. All right, moving on to 5.13. 5.13, we're taking the example that we're given in figure, I believe I put it on the page, figure 5.16. And instead of it being a vertical display, we transform it into being horizontal. So the way I went about this is I used as reference from the example, and I changed what was necessary to make it horizontal across the board. So we have a flexible display for the body of each object. We center the content. We center the alignment of the items that are present within the content. We have a height, which was preset. I put it at auto so we can create a automatic height, a margin of 10 between each thing, and a font family of Rosario. For the flex box, which is going to be the box that appears on the page, we have a width of 600 pixels, a height of 420 pixels, a flexible display, a column, flexible direction that's in the column, and we're aligning our items to the center. So for the ability to transition each of these items, we're going to show the transition of the flex boxes. So we're going to have transition of 1 second to ease out. We're going to have a border radius of 10 pixels, a border of 2 pixels solid black with a width of 100, we're going to have a max width of 610 pixels. We're going to have a margin of 10 pixels. We're going to have a padding of 20 pixels, and we're going to have a box shadow. The box shadow is going to be 10 pixels by 10 pixels by 10 pixels demi-gray. So that's creating that little fade on the background of this. We're going to have that background color of light gray for the box itself. And we're going to have all text aligned to the center. When we hover over each object, we're going to have a width of 140%, so it changes just slightly. We're going to have a background color of gray. We're going to have a color transition of white for the text that's written in there. And we're going to have the font turn from standard to a bold font. So for each of the boxes, as we hover it, we're going to have it go from the first one all the way to the fourth one, using each thing as a child-parent relationship, which is similar to how we did this in other programming courses. So the first one's going to be a royal blue, second one's going to be a crimson red, and then dark green. So we're going to create it. So this is where the image is located. We're going to use GPP, PNG, good programming practice icon. It's located in the same folder. And then we're going to have the text that's written in the first flexbox. Same with the EPT, with the error prevention tip icon. We're going to make sure each icon displays correctly to each flexbox as we're going along it horizontally. The spacing in between is going to be a margin of 10 pixels, just to point that out. Second one is error prevention tip icon. Third one's going to be common programming errors icon. So each one's matching each image. And last one's going to be software engineering observation icon. All right, moving on. 5.14. 5.14, I found it easier to use an image container. So in order to transform each of these objects with a hover, we're going to open that up. So I found 4 images that I liked on the internet. Here's my file pathing for where I have the images saved on it. and then here's what I have, an alternate label for it. So what we're going to do in our stylings is we're going to create an image container. We're going to have it be a flexible display, and we're going to have the content centered to the page. So for each of the images that are present, we're going to have a width of 200 pixels and a height that is auto. And each of these images are the same size, so it's automatically the same height. We're going to have a transformation of 0.3 seconds. Is going to be an eased-in transformation, and we're going to have a margin of 10 pixels between the images. So as we hover over the image, we're going to transform the scale of the image by itself and add an additional 20% to it. So as we hover over each of these images, we can see each of those objects transform to be 20% larger than what they currently are. If we were to actually see a border between these two, they would be perfectly spaced between each of them. I made sure all these were exact to exact as I went through this. And then we're creating the class and each of the images as we go along in between each of the divs. Alright, moving on. The easier stuff, the JavaScript. So 619, we're going to enter the radius of a circle. Let's say the radius is 5. So we created a calculator. It displays the diameter 10, circumference of 31.42, and an area of 78.54. That's a very large circle, right? So the way we did this is we labeled the header, a circle calculator. We created our script that creates a radius. So we're using variables. Variable radius equals parse float. We're using a float with a prompt that pops up saying enter the radius of a circle. To calculate the diameter, circumference, and area, we're going to go through each of these. So we created a variable for the diameter, which is 2 times the radius. So whatever radius is, the diameter will be 2 times it. For the circumference, we're using the radius, we're multiplying it by pi, and then we're multiplying that by 2 to get the circumference of the circle. For the area, we're using the radius to the power of 2 times pi. And then we're going to just write our lines for the results. So we're going to write the diameter, and then we're going to have it fixed, diameter fixed, then we're going to have circumference fixed, and then we're going to have the area fixed. Moving on to 6.22. 6.22. We're going to do a multiple checker. So we're going to see if something is a multiple of something else. So is 100 a multiple of 10? Yes, 100 is a multiple of 10. So the way that we went about this is, in our JavaScript, we enter 2 values. For the first number, we're going to enter what our first number is. This is going to be our larger value to see if it's what's a multiple of this. And for our second value, we're using integer types, so we're going to have a prompt pop up of enter the second number. So the second number will be, is this a multiple of that? And then we can check. So we're going to use an if statement to check. So we're going to have our variable for our message. So we're going to use our if statement with a variable message to get our message to appear. If number equals 0, message cannot be divided by 0. We're checking for division by 0. And number 1 and number 2 equaling 0. We're checking for if the number itself is a multiple of that number, if number 1 is a multiple of number 2. And If it is not, we're displaying it as number 1 is not a multiple of number 2. All right, moving on to section 6.24. We're going to do the math for our numbers, our squares, and our cubes. We're going to style this. So we're going to have our style for our header, well, the headings of each of these sections inside this table. So we're going to style our table. So for it, we're going to title this with a header of squares and cubes. We're going to do each of these table headers as numbers, squares, and cubes. Then we're going to create a styling for it. So our table is going to be a width of 50%, a margin that is going to be auto size, depending on it, and a text align to the center. So anything that's inside of it is going to be centered. For our padding between it, between each of the boxes for our table, it's going to be a 10 pixels. So we're going to have a border of 1 for our table, for the border. We're going to have our table headers, numbers, squares, and cubes. We're going to have our JavaScript to do the math to calculate each of the squares and cubes from 0 to 5. And then we're going to use a for loop to do this. So we're going to do for variable I equals 0. I is less than or equal to 5. I plus plus. So for the variable for squares, it will be I times I. And for variable cubed, it would be I times I times I. And each of these things will write the line for each of them. So we would write a line for each piece of table. So we're creating the table. We're going to write into each of these pieces is I going straight down. This would just be I. We're going to create the line for squared. So this is going to go and do the math here for squared, and each of the squares are going to follow each of the table lines going straight down. So this would be each of these squared, and it's going to write the line for a cube for our table, and this would be each of our numbers cubed. So then we're going to close off our table. JavaScript, body, table, body. That's all for this homework. Thank you.